In the 1920s, an event so important happened that it was likened to the crucifixion. 2 Italian-American anarchists from the Boston area were executed by the state. From 1920 to 1927, protests and demonstrations were sparked all across the world on 6 continents. All across the United States, of course, but also in Berlin, Leipzig, Hamburg, Munich, London, Rome, Milan, Paris, Marseille, Le Havre, The Hague, Basel, Zurich, Tokyo, Sydney, Melbourne, Auckland, Mexico City, Guadalajara, Tampico, Veracruz, Merida, Guaymas, Caracas, Santiago, Sao Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, Buenos Aires, Montevideo, Johannesburg, Casablanca, Dubai. I didn't even know Dubai existed in the 1920s. And there are more. The article talking about international solidarity during the event also mentioned China, Russia, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and mentions protests all over Italy and across Latin America. In Venezuela, the American minister wrote that practically all the lower classes regarded them as martyrs. In Basel, the American consular wrote that protesters made speeches and threatened him with death. The American ambassador Myron Herrick in Paris was sent a mail bomb. The US embassy in Lisbon was bombed. Same thing happened a day later at the embassy in Rio de Janeiro. The American consul in Zurich and in Marseille had the same fate. In Brazil, Uruguay, and in Argentina, American capitalists were complaining that this event was inflaming public opinion to the great detriment of American business interests and endangering innocent lives. You could read in the French newspaper Le Figaro, "To what kind of folly is the world witness?" In Nation magazine, you could read, "Talk about the solidarity of the human race. When has there been a more striking example of the solidarity of great masses of people than this?" Prominent figures wrote open letters to the US government and commented their support for the martyrs, such as Upton Sinclair, who wrote a whole novel on the event titled Boston. Added to the list were Emma Goldman, Marie Curie, Thomas Mann, Diego Rivera, Albert Einstein, George Gross, who made an artwork of it, and H.G. Wells, who wrote an incredible analysis of the situation and also included the event in his book, Mr. Bletsworthy on Rampole Island. And even Mussolini asked the US government to reconsider. He wrote a letter to the American ambassador Henry P. Fletcher to stop the execution, believing the trial to be unfair, to show that Americans aren't Bolsheviks, and to not create 2 leftist martyrs. At the same time, Mussolini didn't really care about executions, nor did he care about anarchists who kept trying to assassinate him. He probably just cared for them because they were Italians. You know, Italians stick together. Gross made an evocative caricature of the Statue of Liberty, blood spilling over her, holding up an electric chair. At her feet are written the names Sacco and Vanzetti, the 2 Italian anarchists who were executed in 1927. 7 years earlier, on April 15, 1920, a paymaster and a guard of a shoe factory were killed and $15,000 were stolen. The police arrested Nicola Sacco, a shoemaker, and Bartolomeo Vanzetti, a fish peddler, 2 Italian-American anarchists. The arrests were made on very shaky grounds. The context for these arrests is pretty important and also relevant to our times. This happened shortly after the Palmer raids, named after U.S. Attorney General A. Mitchell Palmer. The Palmer raids were raids targeting immigrants who had leftist, mostly anarchist and communist ideas. Between 1919 and 1920, 6,000 people were arrested and 556 were deported. People were outraged by this, sparking many strikes and even bombings. This is a pretty important historical event, and we're talking here about 556 deported immigrants. Isn't it crazy how our tolerance for this kind of shit has grown? Anyway, so the trial was unfair and targeted both men for being immigrants and anarchists. The government of Massachusetts recognized this 50 years after their execution and even made August 23rd the Nicola Sacco and Bartolomeo Vanzetti Memorial Day. This was the commentary of H.G. Wells. The guilt or innocence of these 2 Italians is not the issue that has excited the opinion of the world. Possibly they were actual murderers, and still more possibly, they knew more than they would admit about the crime. Europe is not retrying Sacco and Vanzetti or anything of the sort. It is saying what it thinks of Judge Thayer, executing political opponents as political opponents after the fashion of Mussolini and Moscow we can understand, or bandits as bandits. But this business of trying and executing murderers as Reds or Reds as murderers seems to be a new and very frightening line for the courts of a state in the most powerful and civilized union on earth to pursue. The artist Ben Shawn was traveling during this whole controversy and was amazed at how, especially in Paris, a lot of French people showed solidarity with the 2 anarchists, naming boats and even children after them. Back in America, he protested twice in Boston, and the night of their execution, he wept. Shahn would then, for 7 months between 1931 and 1932, complete a series of 23 gouache paintings that would have the strongest impact in his artistic career. Many of them have been lost and some are completely inaccessible. For example, when a show at the Jersey City Museum was made about this series, only 17 of them were gathered. Then I got to thinking about the Sacco and Vanzetti case. They'd been electrocuted in 1927, and in Europe, of course, I'd seen all the demonstrations against the trial, a lot more than there were over here. Ever since I could remember, I'd wished that I'd been lucky enough to be alive at a great time when something big was going on, like the crucifixion. And suddenly I realized I was. Here I was living through another crucifixion. Here was something to paint. I painted 23 pictures about the Sacco and Vanzetti case in 7 months, and Edith Halpert exhibited them at the Downtown Gallery in 1932. A lot of people came and looked at them and bought most of them. I don't know where they are now. But from then on, I knew what I wanted to do, and I've been doing it ever since. Added to this, Ben Shawn was a leftist and an immigrant, having been born in Russia, meaning he understood and could maybe even identify with the struggles Sacco, Vanzetti, their families, and their communities were facing. Depicting this injustice and the working class more generally would be what Ben Shawn would do for the rest of his career. Sadly, many of the artworks were lost and some of them aren't available online, or they're in black and white, or they're scans of old books, or they're low resolution. But for the sake of this video, we can focus on 2 artworks of the series. The first artwork I want to look at is The Passion of Sacco and Vanzetti, which is at the Whitney in New York. It shows the 2 martyrs' funeral with the 3 members of the Lowell Committee grieving. These 3 members are MIT's president Samuel Stratton, Harvard's president Lawrence Lowell, and a retired judge, Robert Grant. In the back, you see Judge Webster Thayer giving an oath. These 4 men are Sacco and Vanzetti's executioners. Judge Thayer called them anarchist bastards and generally hated the political ideals these 2 men were advocating for. The Lowell Commission was created by the governor following public pressure to release the accused. This independent commission, headed by the bourgeoisie, unsurprisingly sided with Judge Thayer and allowed the executions. Aside from denouncing bourgeois hypocrisy, Ben Shawn is putting faces on the real perpetrators of violence, a violence much more important and dangerous than the interpersonal violence Sacco and Vanzetti may or may not have committed, but a violence which is systemic, unpunishable, and usually tolerated. Sacco and Vanzetti were murdered with the power of the state, which allows the people who killed them to be safe and even feel righteous about the murder they carried out. On a more technical note, Ben Shawn did incredible archival work for this project, and because much of his artworks document and bear witness, he used photographs as references, sometimes coming close to simply copying them. Here, the portraits and the open caskets come from pictures Ben Shawn found of the event. This is even more apparent in the second artwork I want to look at, which is titled Bartolomeo Vanzetti and Nicola Sacco. It's a simple recreation of a picture of the 2 martyrs. Both men are handcuffed together, showing, in a way, their solidarity and their shared struggles. What I like about this painting in particular is that it shows exactly why Ben Shawn's art is, to me, important. It's a simple recreation of a photograph. Shawn didn't create the composition, he didn't select his subjects and the way they're posing, he simply took a black and white picture and painted it. He added his style and color. So what we're left to wonder is, what does Shawn's style and color add to the image which makes his recreation of it so important? In a speech at the University of Buffalo, Shawn said, "It is the mission of art to remind man from time to time that he is human, and the time is ripe just now, today, for just a reminder." And what is it to remind people that they're human? He's tackling the subject of Sacco and Vanzetti, but he's not turning them into heroes as a Soviet realist would. He's depicting them faithfully, almost photographically, as humans. He's appealing to the humanity we share with these men and how our very inhuman system is inhumanely treating them. These men were tried and killed, not for any crime, but for being anarchists and Italians. They fought for a world without hierarchy, privilege, and domination, a humanist world. And Shawn's style and color adds a human touch, which often I find the apparent objectivity and coldness of photography doesn't have. This photograph is a picture of two convicted men who are about to be executed by the state. It doesn't incriminate them, but it also doesn't denounce the injustice they're facing. It's cold and documents the situation as it is. Ben Shawn's version, by adding color, his visual style, and the human touch with all its imperfections and beauty, breathes humanity in the image. He's reminding us that this event isn't inevitable and a product of the rigid laws of nature, as a cold, archival documentary photograph could make us believe, but the product of humanity's constant struggle for justice, peace, and freedom. He's reminding us that we are human. And that was the video. Thank you so much for watching. By the way, I don't think all photography is cold and archival and just documentary without any feelings, obviously. I used to study photography. I love photography. I would like to talk about photography more on this channel. But when you compare both like the photographs of like, you could find like in a journal or like more like historical archival photographs versus Ben Shawn's like very touching artworks, there's like a warmth to it. I liked the contrast, but it's not to say all photographs are cold. Ben Shawn was himself a photographer. He was greatly influenced by his friend and colleague, Walker Evans. They shared a studio. Walker Evans kind of, from what I understand, kind of introduced him to photography. Walker Evans, who's a great photographer, by the way. I might make a video one day on those photographers who went to work in the South during the Depression. I don't remember how it's called again. Anyway, it'll be for another video. For now, though, I want to thank you for watching, for liking and subscribing if you haven't already. By the way, shout out to Russell, who recognized me in the street, and I looked like this. Thank you for saying hello. And as a mark of gratitude, I want everyone in the comments to say hello to Russell. Please. We did that with Gil once and it went really well. Every time I saw someone say hello to Gil, I laughed. So let's do it for Russell this time. All right, now we can go back to the conclusion of the video. To go watch my latest video on Begonia. I had a lot of fun making it. I dress up as characters in it. So I strongly recommend you go watch it if you haven't already. And if you've watched Begonia and would like to see an analysis of the ending and of the themes of the movie, I really liked shooting that video. So go check it out if you haven't already. And I'd like to thank all the patrons. Not only the patrons who are scrolling right here, which you could be a part of for $1 or more per month, but also the patrons who are here, who are the top tier patrons, and especially Roman Brandel, X-Towns, Bone Meal, and Chrissy Chris, who are the top tier patrons to the point where I shout them out at at the end of each video. There you go. Thank you so much. December's starting. No more November gloom. I don't know if you're in your part of the world, there's November gloom, but here there's no sun for like a month during November. So the sun's out for December, and it's the holidays and stuff like that. And it's my birthday on the 29th of December. So there's a lot going on. So there's probably not going to be a video that's going to come up next week, but there's going to be one for like Christmas time around. I'll try to surprise you with like a really nice video for Christmas. I'll try. I'll do my best. So because of that, there won't be any videos next week. So check out the other videos if you're interested. Oh, if you still want more videos of me, even though there's none next week, check out the CBC Arts video channel, YouTube channel. CBC Arts, I make videos for them, and there should be one coming out in December, I think. And it's one that's also politically involved, such as the one we just did. So go check it out. It's a video I'm very proud of. And finally, I'm doing an anarchist FAQ. I'm continuing that. So if you want to know more about anarchism, because this video is about Italian anarchists, check out an anarchist FAQ. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Podcasts. It's on YouTube. Basically, an anarchist FAQ is a collection of many articles answering to different questions about anarchism, which I read. So it's an audiobook, basically. So if you like my voice, I guess, and you want more of it, you can listen to me reading an audiobook about anarchism. I don't know how many exactly, but there's hours out there of audiobooks about anarchism that I've narrated. So go check it out if you're interested. And yeah, I think that's it. I've said enough. Go follow my Letterboxd. Go follow my Instagram. And see you in the next video. All right, goodbye.